just didn't see it at all. And I'm ashamed of that.
Isn't that what the media tries to do, though?
It's their only purpose.
Right.
They're not here to inform you, really. Even on the big things that really matter, like the economy and war and COVID and like things that really matter that will affect you. No, their job is not to inform you. They are working for the small group of people who actually run the world. They're their servants. They're their Praetorian Guard. And we should treat them with maximum contempt because they have earned it.
Now, everything he said there is 100% true.
So Tucker Carlson thinks that we should treat him with the maximum contempt. Or is he doing a 1984 move where he speaks of himself in the third person as one of the biggest members of corporate media on one of the biggest corporate news networks, right? So if anything he's saying is true, then he is part of that control mechanism. Yet here he is exposing it? Does that make sense? Does that make sense that that's what he's doing? Does it make sense that the elites would allow him to blossom on their platform, which he says is for them? He's saying that he works for a company that is not about informing you. It's about pushing out a narrative from the elites. And he is one of their most successful members. They pay him a ton of money. And they're even reorganizing their network around him. They are Tuckerizing their network. Think for a moment. Why would elites that are controlling us with media allow this? Does that make sense to you?
And it is amazing to see that that's just not a guy who works at a corporate news station. That's a guy who has the #1 corporate news show in America. That more Democrats watch in the demo, watch Tucker Carlson than watch MSNBC. So that's a big deal that he's come to this realization. That's a huge realization. And that's why I think he's allowed. I think I'm not allowed. I think that's why
He's come to this realization implies that he's not well aware of what he's doing, that it's not intentional. He's a good faith actor that's just, got caught up in some things and focused on his job and content and didn't even realize the path he was going down. As opposed to the reality of him being a person who initially was going to try to do an honest sort of job and found that his audience didn't want that product. He tried to do real journalism. That was his initial mission. But the people that have the ideology that he chose to target were not interested in honest journalism. He was not very successful when he took that path. So he quickly pivoted to becoming this propagandist that is focused on trolling, getting people upset and getting people emotional and, just sort of sensationalism. And that is when things blew up for him. Such that now he has a supposed lefty who is laundering his reputation, normalizing his behavior in such a corrupt and insulting way. Jimmy Dore thinks his audience is so stupid that they don't make the connection of how can someone who's the #1 player in one of the biggest corporate news networks, right, be sitting here telling you about how the news networks which he works for, they're somehow evil and being controlled. But he's not being controlled. He's not part of the machine, right? So these evil people are allowing him to call them out, and they're rewarding him for it, and they're making their network more aligned with him. Put yourself in that position. You are some corporate elite right? And you are colluding with corporate media, right, to deceive the public. And then you have this guy who is exposing you. And what do? Do you go after him? No. You promote him, you pay him tons of money, and you try to make the network more like him, getting rid of people who oppose him and trying to hire more people who are like him. So you want to deceive the people, and you're doing it with someone who's exposing your very game. Or is it that he's not really exposing anything? He's doing high level propaganda. He's one of the best in the business. What he's doing right now, this is outstanding. Outstanding work. The way he says the media, speaking of himself in a third person, the way a lot of people in independent media do a lot. The media, the evil media, like it's some evil character of some sort and not representative of the very business that they're in.
He's able to do the best reporting on Syria, do the best reporting on Ukraine. I mean, he's wiping the floor with everybody else on that, and he's going against the biggest narrative, the war narrative. You can't go against that. He also went against the COVID narrative.
So let me cherry pick some things that he's talked about, which I view, or my audience more importantly, views as good work, and ignore all the other destructive trash that he does, so I can launder his reputation. Let me focus my audience only on these few things that I know that they are in line with, right? So I'm basically creating a new character. I'm taking him as he is in reality, and I'm creating a completely new character that is only the 3 cherry-picked items. Something you can do with just about anyone, right? Look at somebody like Donald Trump. Ignore all the corruption, all the lies, and say, well, he's a person who bought food for firemen and traveled out as a private citizen. It wasn't his job. He traveled out to speak to the people, to help the people from this train derailment, right? He's a guy who they say he's racist, but, you know, what about blacks for Trump? What about the stuff that he did for the HBCUs, right? What about what he did for the opportunity zones, right? Let's pick only the things that would appeal to our audience and describe him as such. Oh, and for the dummies, we're not comparing him to Hitler. Oh, Hitler. We got to look at how charismatic he was, how much of a patriot he was. He was very pro-Germany. He was pro the German people, right? He wanted to help the working class by removing the threat to the working class, these immigrants, these Jews who were coming in and taking away the jobs, right? He didn't have to worry about those things. He could have just been a corrupt politician and focused on himself. But instead, he fought for the people. You see how we can launder anyone's reputation? Right? Ignore all the bodies from the serial killer and just focus on the fact that he did charity and spent time with his grandmother every weekend. He was a loving soul and actually was quite loved by his neighbors. Very friendly person, right? Had a great heart. As far as the serial killing thing, let's just not discuss that. Right.
And now he sees according to his own words, that the media is part of the control apparatus of the oligarchs.
Now he sees according to his own words. Why does he add the according to his own words in there? Interesting.
And they're not there to inform you. Just like Chomsky said, they're there to manufacture consent for what the oligarchy who pays them wants them to manufacture consent for. And that's why he's catching so much hell and hate. It's because he's going against the war narrative, for one, and he went against the COVID narrative. But they had already gotten rid of his advertisers, right? So now the only people left advertising on his shows is Mike the Pillow Guy and catheter commercials and things like that. I don't think he gets any big pharma funding or anything like that. I don't watch news anymore, so I don't know. But and that's why he can tell the truth. Because they already got rid of his advertising.
Anybody that thinks that Jimmy Dore doesn't watch news anymore, I got a bridge to sell you.
So that is, I think, like, it's exciting to me that, can you imagine if Rachel Maddow was saying that, or Anderson Cooper was saying that?
Or just someone you know personally had the balls to say that. Just anyone you know personally that was a Branch Covidian or a whatever.
Yeah.
Would even have the guts of a Tucker Carlson.
Just keep in mind, I am much more anti-establishment, and I am much more critical of American media than Jimmy Dore is. And many people would be shocked at that statement, again, because of the propaganda. But yet, I absolutely watch the news, right? From CNN to MSNBC to Jimmy Dore to Shapiro to Crowder to TYT, right? The idea he doesn't watch the news is absolutely absurd. And how am I more anti-establishment than him? While I also critique many of the same people he critiques, the Democratic Party, the elites, the 1%, the oligarchs, I don't do that on one hand, and then on the other hand, I would never be laundering a corporate media icon like Tucker Carlson. I would absolutely go on Fox, for sure. I would not go on a cartoonish show like Tucker Carlson. Right? My anti-establishment and my against corporate media is not slanted in one direction or the other. It is consistent. Right? As angry as Jimmy Dore pretends to be against liberal corporate media, I am just as enraged about conservative corporate media, and as passionately against slanted corporate media I am, and Jimmy Dore is on one side, more so than the other. I have the equal level of concern within independent media, in fact, more so. Why would anyone rational be more focused on legacy media that is dying? Certainly someone who talks about the fact that corporate media is dying and legacy and say things like no one watches it anymore certainly would not be more focused on the dying legacy media. They would be more focused on where things are going now, where things are booming now, where the most potential harm can come from. The very things they complain about in corporate media, right? Being dishonest, focused on their corporate interests, focused on profits. Naturally, independent media has the same conflicts of interest. If you don't keep people watching, you don't keep their attention, they stop watching, the money dries up, right? So just like corporate media needs to keep you engaged, so does independent media. Only the stakes are much higher, right? When you are Tucker Carlson making millions and millions of dollars, right? Losing your job is not that big of a deal. What happens to a YouTuber whose YouTube channel dies? What do they do then? Who will hire them? Do they make enough money that they can just not work like Tucker Carlson? The dishonest in media, like Jimmy Dore, won't point these things out to you because, of course, they're in that business. Why would they want to bash the way they make a living? Instead, they will give you this irrational focus on corporate media and be much quieter on independent media, unless, of course, it's coming from a side that their audience doesn't like. Interesting how that works out. This is Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. This has been a Jimmy Dore hit piece. Me smearing Jimmy Dore and Taco Carlson. Who is going to be the simp to come out of the woods and defend him? YouTube is like high school. And I think the bell just rang. So I'm going to catch my bus. I'm going to go home and play my Nintendo.